I got something I need to admit about myself. I like spooky goblins. I like silly monsters. I like ghouls. I like skeletons. I like demons. I'm into horror things. And one of the horror things I like is Diablo. Diablo is a game where you kill spooky monsters and you play as your own created character and you use silly little magic spells and cool looking weapons. You could be a barbarian or a rogue or other stuff, maybe a paladin, and you can explode the skulls of weird looking demons and hang out with an old guy named Deckard Cain. And it's just a really good time. A lot of people like Diablo, and that's why they've been making Diablo games for like 25 years. My favorite Diablo games are Diablo 1 and 2 because they're a little bit grittier and more gothic. And today I want to talk about the music in those games. Our story sort of starts with Matt Ullman, who's the composer behind the music in the first two games. And actually there's a really good resource that's sort of obscure and weird to find on this old Diablo 2 website, where Matt Ullman has written liner notes for each of the Diablo 2 tracks. So we'll be referring back to this a lot throughout the video, but let's jump into the music. All right, so the music of Diablo 1 is actually pretty interesting, and its approach will tell us a lot about what to expect from Diablo 2 as well. I'll sum it up like this. It's a gothic, dark, ambient, experimental approach that draws a lot on 20th century composition techniques. Now, what does that mean? If I was going to make an art analogy, you have something like the Belle Epoque that occurs before the 20th century, and you have Impressionism, which is as strange and esoteric as fine art had gotten up until that point. And by 1907, you have Picasso painting La Demoiselle d'Avignon. You haven't painted this! Look at these women. You know, he's doing some racist stuff here. Maybe, sort of. Depends what you think. I don't know. It's a conversation. Picasso was an asshole. Maybe he wasn't. I don't know. Actually, I do know. He's not a great guy. Anyway, this is what the 20th century did to people. They did this to them. You went from nice, pretty lakes to this. And that happened in music as well. Right? So what it means to be a 20th century composer is to be somebody who's a rule breaker, but they still believe in their being a composer. And Matt Ullman is a composer. He composes. He writes music. He uses techniques. He reads books. He references himself to other compositional figures. So that's how Matt Ullman approaches music for Diablo. And if you want examples of this, you can look at the entire soundtrack for Diablo 1, except the Tristram Theme. We'll touch on that. That's a different situation. That's kind of very unique for him. We'll touch on that in a second. But the rest of the OST for Diablo 1, which is 5 tracks, is exactly what I just described. It's experimental, it's dark, it's gothic, but it uses musical material. It uses techniques and written material recorded for instruments that's then messed around with in a digital environment to create the effect. A lot of what he does is big, spooky string chords. You have screaming choral arrangements, and you got a lot of guitar work that occurs over big drums. Now, I really like the way that Matt Ullman uses drums across all of Diablo. It is really primal, and he evokes this deep, big feeling of demons underground working away at corrupting Earth, which is very much part of the Diablo feel. And that way he uses drums. It's kind of like how the drums are used in Black Skinhead. Like, that sound is really dangerous. So yeah, if you listen to the music in Diablo 1, if you listen track by track, you'll notice that there's not a consistent theme for each track. It's not linear. It doesn't just move forward and carry a continual idea across like maybe a pop song does. You listen to a Taylor Swift song, it all is very coherent. This is incoherent. He is writing incoherent music that's still very musical because he uses those compositional techniques. Those are sort of my big thoughts on his approach to the Diablo 1 soundtrack. I'll leave my full notes and full breakdown track by track up on my Patreon, and I'll have that up there for free, so you can just go check that out. It's just a good place to put it. But I want to move on to talk about the Tristram Theme, because this is very strange for him, because he is typically very strange. He's a very strange artist. He makes dense, complicated, esoteric pieces of music, and the Tristram Theme isn't really that. It's actually pretty straightforward. The Tristram Theme is a 12-string guitar song that is based on the work of Chibuca Granda, who's a Peruvian artist. So it's like a Peruvian flamenco acoustic guitar style piece. That's it. It uses ambiguous harmonic structures like sus chords to make it feel pretty spooky, plays around a lot with echoes and time-based effects, kind of like Laura's theme from Silent Hill 2 does, but pretty much it's a melodic development across a 12-string acoustic guitar. It's got a lot of energy and feeling to it, but it's, for lack of a better, it's normal, right? Like, it's kind of a normal thing to do, and when you listen to it, it feels like a normal piece of music. It feels like it makes sense. It's easy to listen to, and a lot of people listen to it. All right, that's enough on Diablo 1. Let's move on to Diablo 2's music. And the first thing you notice when you listen to the music for Diablo 2 is that, damn, Diablo 1 sold a lot of copies. Man, they had so much more money for Diablo 2. It's like, I don't know, if you listen to Nirvana, you'll know the difference between In Utero and Bleach. Now, I love the album Bleach, but that thing was recorded by amateurs. And that's just true. Sounds like if I tried to do the mixing. It sounds awesome, but it doesn't have the finesse or the size or the presence that In Utero does, which was done by Steve Albini from Big Black, who's a genius producer, and it just sounds amazing. That mixing, mastering thing, it's different, man, and you hear that on the Diablo 2 soundtrack. They had a lot more money to spend on the production of it, and the production value way up. Wilderness is an interesting piece here because it's the sound that plays while you're exploring Act 1, and it actually helps support the idea I'm trying to make, because Matt Ullman himself said that everything but the kitchen sink makes an appearance. He uses 7/8, 11/8, 3/4, 4/4, punk open chords, waltz melodies. He throws everything into this piece of music, and it's extremely busy. There's a big idea here is like the sound of wind, because he wants to create a pastoral feeling for the area, but he really throws a lot of material in it and doesn't give the listener a lot of space. It's claustrophobic, it's dense, it's aggressive, it's cacophonous. And that's something he'll bring through the whole soundtrack. Rogue is another interesting piece. We hear the 12-string guitar here, and that's kind of referential to the Tristram theme, because the Rogue piece of music is what you hear in your home base encampment in Act 1. Ullman was chasing a medieval sound for this, and he used the hammered dulcimer. That sort of archaic medieval thing that he does is really cool. It brings a lot of character to Diablo's music. Another cool track to highlight is Spider, which is a rework of the original Dungeon track, and he says it's influenced by Penderecki and Henry Manfredini. Now, if we go back to our original talk about 20th century composers, one of them is Penderecki, and he was really famous for his approach called sonorism. And we could go deep on sonorism, but you can think of it as Polish colorism, not the racist kind, but the kind where you look at a painting and it's all about color. Penderecki's music is focused on the color that sounds can evoke. And that is something that Ullman brings across as well. In his approach, he is really interested in timbre. And he mentions that when he talks about Rogue. He says he's got a fascination with texture. And by that he means the way that sounds combine together to create a color. If we move over to the track Jungle, we can see that it's very clear that his approach is eclectic. He mentions being inspired by Johnny Quest, Barbarella, and Jesus Christ Superstar. These are very disparate elements that he brings in sort of a subtle and strange way. This is sort of an aside, but I often see people, when they find music they like, they say, man, where can I find something that's a lot like this? And usually there's a really good answer. But for Matt Ullman's work, really what you're getting a look at this guy's raw psyche. I mean, he's so willing to throw all of his artistic ideas on the page and be experimental and be strange and be utterly himself, that you're just not gonna find someone who can replicate what he does. If you like this, buy the vinyl, bro. This is the thing to listen to. I also quickly wanted to bring up the track Toru, not for the content of it, but what Ullman says about it. He says that it's named after Toru Takemitsu. He's a famous Japanese composer from the 20th century who worked a lot with silence. And Matt Ullman draws a lot on Takemitsu's approach to silence and space in this piece. But maybe I'm a hater for this. Matt Ullman doesn't do silence and space, man. He does density, he does cacophony, he does quickness, he does full texture, timbre, big, attack, strange, weird, like, he puts everything into a piece. He does whatever the heck he wants. He's not about restraint. He's more maximalist than minimalist. He's not laid back and chill. He doesn't focus on the small things. He throws a bunch of stuff at your head, man. So, you know, I've listened to all the pieces, right? I listened to this piece, and it's more laid back than what he does. But the idea that Matt Ullman should be taking a lot from Toru Takemitsu, look, it'll balance him out, but it's just not him. But I bring it up because that juxtaposition, I think, tells us a lot about what he does do and what makes him him and what makes his work so unique, compelling, and frankly, pretty great. I think that's enough on the tracks. I'll have my full notes on them on the Patreon, like I said earlier. You can check out everything I thought on them, all my random crazy stuff I said. But I want to draw it all together. Matt Ullman brought a composer's flair to the music for Diablo 1 and 2. He took it extremely seriously. These are pieces of music that stand up as legitimate art in their own right. The web of connecting them to other composers is very large. You could write a dissertation on the music for Diablo, and that can't be said for every game. Now, sometimes I find it overwhelming. I find it too much. I find the approach too same from piece to piece. I find that it lacks a sense of through line. It lacks direction. It seems aimless. Sometimes it seems pointless. Sometimes it seems detached from anything. But at other times, it's great. It's fantastic. It's all engrossing. It's something that you can really chew on. You can really think about. And at all times, what it always does is it brings heaps of character to the game. These early games, they have bad graphics, man. The graphics look bad. I like them, but they're not realistic. They're not high quality graphics. So you need every little thing you can to put you in the world. And Matt Ullman's music is so full of character. It's so full of him. It's so full of Ullman that you get a big servant of Ullman everywhere you go. Anyway, if you do like the music in Diablo, you should look at some of these classical composers that I mentioned. Go on a deep dive. Go listen to some stuff. Go watch Shock of the New. It's on YouTube. It's a documentary series about art. Doesn't really talk about music, but Matt Ullman would want you to do this. He would want you to be into the history of 20th century art because he is, man. Anyway, those are my thoughts. I got a little crazy with it, I'll admit. We started with ghouls. We ended up with old white guys, so I guess we went from ghouls to ghouls. Let's go. All right, dude, I need to stop. This is just getting too much. Bye-bye. Hey, everybody, thank you so much for watching. If you're seeing this around the time of release, I'm currently celebrating my birthday with my family in Tasmania, so I hope you are all having very happy times as well. And I wanted to take this opportunity to especially thank my Patreon supporters. Ashro, Dave, Andrew McTaggart, Mark David, Rima, Thomas Cooliz, Deliverator, Star 1120, Robert Alex, The Ore Baron, Butterjam Jimbo, Corey Kraushaar, Brimst, Van Borner, Forrest Parrott, Lucas Fjodorchuk, and my mum. Alright, see you in the next one. Bye-bye.